Ready? Since we're gonna get started. So I want to start off by thanking you all for coming tonight and showing your support for these two amazing authors and for showing support to the Writer's Block Bookstore. My name is Carrie Bevan. I am the Receiving and Customer Order Specialist at the Writer's Block Bookstore in Winter Park, Florida. I'm here today to introduce these two incredibly talented New York Times bestselling psychological thriller authors. Talking to us today will be J.T. Ellison, whose newest book, Her Dark Lies, is out today in hardcover and paperback. In conversation will be Lisa Gardner, whose newest book, Before She Disappeared, is also out now in hardcover. So let's kick this off over to J.T. and Lisa.
Well, I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk to J.T. Ellison, who's one of my favorite novelists, about her brand new thriller, Her Dark Lies. I got to read it last weekend and I was just hooked. One of those great reads from the opening, the wonderfully Gothic opening prologue to just in one more chapter, go to bed in one more chapter, I'll go to bed in one more chapter. So I was not very productive on Sunday and I blame you.
Well, I will own that and right back at you because you kept me up. I think I wrote you a note. You rickrolled me in Before She Disappeared, and man, did I get that stuck in my head. It was like 1 a.m. I couldn't go to sleep because I'm sitting there, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you know. I'm like,
I know, and of all the songs
we are gonna have a call. Yeah.
So well, I'm very excited for Her Dark Lies, on sale today. Yes, your big debut launch tonight. Thank you everyone for sharing this with us and JT. So let's talk about Her Dark Lies. I like to torture you now with questions. So you had mentioned to me, and I just love this, that the inspiration for Her Dark Lies lies in Rebecca, but with a twist. So why don't you talk to us about how you came up with Her Dark Lies? Because I loved that Gothic homage in the novel quite a bit.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan of Rebecca. I love it. I read it often. It was not my first rodeo with Rebecca or being inspired by Rebecca, but I was listening to it. And it's a completely different experience when you listen to this story, and it's incredibly well acted. And I was just absorbed, and we were in Italy and I'm listening to this and we're cruising around the Italian countryside and we land on the shores of Lake Como, and there's an island in Como, Isola Comacina, that has a couple of really interesting legends around it. One of which is you have to drink a certain kind of coffee before you leave the island or the demons will follow you home. I'm like, okay, that's the coolest thing ever. And I can find a wonderful way to put that into a novel. We were talking earlier about how the littlest things will just pop in. And it's like, oh, I got to use that. So that was my inspiration for both the setting and the story. And I married the two and I moved it to a much bigger island that I made up the island, which is something I don't normally do. I almost always keep things in the real world. But this one I created, and it's the story of a young up and coming artist, Claire Hunter, who is a large format oil painter. And she's just at the beginning of her career when she meets an incredible guy named Jack Compton, who's 10 years older than her, and falls madly in love, and he with her in turn, and they are engaged and they're getting ready to be married. And that's where we meet them. They're getting ready to leave for their wedding weekend, and there is a home invasion in her home, and things go pretty badly, and they have to cover it up a little bit so they can leave for the wedding. And then they get to the island and things just continue to cascade into horribleness. It's just not the wedding weekend you really want to have.
I love that, again, you're starting kind of with that, the Rebecca concept. You have kind of this new bride going to this very powerful, rich family. She even knows she's marrying a guy who was a little too good and too charismatic, but she's just so headlessly over heels in love. Why wouldn't she? But I like from there, you also kind of transition. We get out to the island where the wedding's going to take place, and there's a storm that will be cutting the island off. And there was just this really excellent segue to, and then there were none. So
That was absolutely another inspiration. This is truly an homage to all of my favorite Gothics, right? I think when I pitched it, I said it was Rebecca meets the talented Mr. Ripley with a little and then there were none with a JT Ellison twist.
Yeah.
It just, those books are such classics for a reason. We love the atmosphere, we love the mystery, we love the close circle, the inability of the people to leave. They're caught, right? It's an incredibly claustrophobic style of storytelling. And I
Yes.
love that insular nature. I love to really kind of dig in and then sit there with the characters and kind of watch the fog creep around them just to see what's going to happen. So it is definitely a love letter to all of my favorite Gothics and mysteries and all of the above. I mean, it's a
Well,
little
so
bit of
this was a
everything.
question I have, because I always find description and setting to be tough, but there's no doubt about it. In Her Dark Lies, the island, the castle that kind of looks like a fortress. I mean, it is almost like the main character of this novel. The way you wield that as a sense of place that is both historic and stable, but scary. It has, the hidden passageways. Oh yeah, there's the crypts. You want to walk down to the crypt. I mean, you kind of, the more you learn about this, some more. What was that like as a writer, where, to take on this project where setting is one of your biggest assets?
Well, I thank you, because this is the first time I've ever created a setting whole cloth. I always set things in places that I know, because it's almost a crutch, right? You know what it smells like, you know what it sounds like. This one, I was discovering this island as I was writing the book, and I was layering in. Yeah, I didn't know there was a crypt in the first draft. There was not a crypt, but an old island fortress would have to have a crypt, right? It's those little elements that I kind of built into the story as I was getting to know the setting a little bit better. As a matter of fact, I wrote the way I kind of launched into it. I wrote a fake Condé Nast article about the
Yeah.
island, as if I was a journalist and I was visiting the Comptons. And this island has been in the family for several generations. Jack is the youngest right now, but his father Bryce is a part of things, and his grandfather Will is there. And Will is a famous cinematographer and was involved in a lot of the cool art scenes. His great grandfather is the one that bought the island and made it theirs and did all of the renovations to the fortress to turn it into Villa Scogliera and all of that. So it's a familial estate, and I think that's also a really important component to these things, is how you take something that should be old and decrepit, and it's clean inside and bright, and you walk in and it's all modern art and marble and just this incredibly open, wonderful place. And then you go up a couple levels and it's very dark, and there are a lot of places for people to hide, and they don't have closets, so there's wardrobes in the hallways that anybody could be in there. It gets progressively darker the higher you go in the house, and so you almost are going into the whole Rochester wife in the attic kind of thing. There's a little bit of that. What's upstairs, what's banging, there's noises. It's haunted. There's even a gray lady that supposedly appears to the pure of heart. It was so much fun to make all of that. I mean, it's
Well,
just a
so I
really
think
fun
this is also
setting.
kind of what I was curious about. I mean, is it all from scratch, or like when you were picturing this castle, did you kind of start based on something you'd once seen? And the gray lady, the ghost story, is that something again from somewhere in or I need a ghost story. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Because there's an air of authenticity to all of it that makes it feel like there's maybe some kernels of truth woven in with the fiction.
Well, isn't that always how it is? I mean, this isn't a fantasy. It is grounded in some sort of reality. But I've traveled extensively in Italy, and so there were a lot of things that I pulled in. The grottos, that's Capri, with the blue grotto and the statuary niches that they used to have. So there's a cult of Venus on this island on Isola, but there was that kind of stuff on Capri. The fortress was based on Sacre du Saint Michel, which is up in northern Italy, and that's very much the cover. I'm going to show you this so you can see it up close. That It's all backward. That is based on Sacre du Saint Michel, and then the villa is built into it. So there's this old monastery with the crypts, and this island is so far off the beaten path that everybody who's, that's died there is buried there. So they're all living on top of their dead, which really got in my head as I was building this, because I wanted that to be an element to this story, that, there are so many spirits that are there, and some are protective and some are malicious. So, but it was just, it became its own character. It truly did.
And I love how you unveiled it in layers. So there's that moment when you're coming up on the boat and you beheld it, and it's just the awe of it. And then, like you said, as the book goes on and, Claire starts learning more and more, it's like, oh, and there's the crypt, and oh, all the dead are here because they couldn't even make it. I mean, you start bit by bit, you're like, the pretty shiny object is.
They can't get you off the island if you die.
Darkness. But I had to thank you, because in this, lockdown times, reading Her Dark Lies is such, you feel like you're in Italy. And, like the scent of the lemons. And I mean, that's as close to travel as I've gotten in a while. And I was like, thank you for taking me to Italy.
Well, it's a wonderful place, and I'm Italian, and I have family there, and we go every couple of years to visit them. And it truly, I mean, it was born there, it's grounded there. I took a little bit of something from almost every trip, every place that I visited, and married it all into this stew that became Isola. And it just, which means island. It's, the island with the cliff, and the house on the side of the cliff. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to make this place. I might actually be kind of addicted now to making fake settings, because it was so much fun.
Well, so we talked about then, kind of the secret recipe for the setting. What I'm also very curious about is the family you created. Because, again, like Rebecca, you have the wealthy, powerful people. But what you did, I thought was much more interesting. It's not a man, it's this family. And like you said, 3 generations. And as you describe them, it's very difficult not to think of, like the Kennedys, those gifted, privileged, highly influential, powerful families, and each generation is better looking than the last.
Yeah.
Bringing us to new groom Jack, who's just kind of the shining star of everything. So, I mean, did you make that up as you go along? Was that something you kind of set up and you knew the dynamics before you started?
I knew what I wanted them to be into, because, they are incredibly wealthy. I was thinking it was like, if Bill Gates had this kind of setup and this kind of family and everything, that this would be a really cool way to do it. The generational, in Rebecca, it is just Maxim. And I wanted it to have a family element, and I wanted him to be close to his family. I wanted him marrying Claire to be something that the entire family really is agreeing upon, because we haven't touched on it yet, but Jack is a widower, and his wife Morgan died 10 years earlier under not so suspicious circumstances, but in a way that certainly has led to a few questions along the way. And I really wanted this to be, the entire family is welcoming Claire in. And when you do that, it's kind of a mafia, right? When you're being brought into the family,
You get that
there's
she
got to
starts
be
to realize this isn't normal. No, this isn't the normal Meet the Parents. It's like entering the firm.
No, it is. It totally is. It's very much, how do we get involved with a family like this? And Jack, to his credit, wanted to make sure that she loved him, and so he didn't even reveal who he was for the first several weeks that they were dating. And it wasn't until he was going to take her to his brother's wedding that he admitted who he was, and she's just like, okay. That's maybe why he was able to buy my painting for $10,000 off the cuff, wrote a check for it and walked out the door with it. She's so in love, and she's so entranced by him that she's willing to overlook things that she probably shouldn't be overlooking. And, she has to sign a prenup. Of course she has to sign a prenup, but that's a whole different kind of thing. There's a non-disclosure agreement in her prenup that is almost more important than the money. And that kind of sparked, she's like, this is really weird. I mean, what is up with that? And that's kind of the moment when she starts going, this isn't what I think it is. Things aren't what they seem. And there was another part of that is Will Compton has Alzheimer's. And I really love it's a horrible disease. My grandfather passed away from it. And so I've seen this up close, and it's terrifying and it's upsetting. And I wanted him to be the unreliable narrator of the story because we don't know. Is he telling her the truth? Is he not? What has he seen? What does he know? Is he going to spill the beans on the whole family? Or, what's going to happen? He's really a dynamic character in this because of his memory loss.
And so one of the things I thought is, so you've thought already about the dynamics you want for the family. Like any great suspense, psychological suspense, Gothic novel, it's all about the layers of secrets. The island has secrets, the castle has secrets, the people have a lot of secrets.
Yes.
One of the things that just caught my attention immediately in this novel, and in this way, I think you have definitely the modern twist on Rebecca, where you start to also suspect our new, pretty, naive, artistic bride probably has some really good secrets of her own. And I actually kind of wondered who was more dangerous for a while. And that was really a lot of fun. Again, how much of this was your plan going in? Or is this one of those books, the character started writing it for you?
No, no. Claire was actually
one day. I just want to one day. No.
Well, every once in a while that does happen, that the story just takes on, it just becomes its own thing, and it just happens. This was not one of those books. She was not one of those characters. She wouldn't even tell me her name. She had 4 different names as I was drafting this book.
How funny.
She was the most closed character I've ever had to write. And she's my main character, and we're in first person. It was incredibly difficult. She didn't want to give up her secrets. She didn't want to tell me what was going on. She finally admitted her name, and that made things a little bit easier. I'm talking about her like she's some sort of hostage that I was keeping in my office and saying, you got to tell me this or else, which is exactly what it is, right? And she finally told me her name, and that made things a little bit easier. And then I understood some of her motivations, and those things started making their way in. And what we think about her and who she is, what she thinks about herself and who she is a very interesting thing. When she meets Jack, she has tattoos, she has piercings, she is a really bohemian, free spirit kind of girl. And when she realizes who he is, she starts erasing herself in many ways. She takes out her piercings. She stops doing funny things with her hair. She has her hair straightened and made blonde, and it's very proper and prim. She has her tattoos removed. She's doing all of these things. She's literally erasing herself to be the woman that she thinks he wants. But he fell in love with the bohemian girl with her nose pierced. And, it's just one of those interesting things that's happening in this story as time is moving on. She has become who she thinks he wants her to be. And that means really hiding everything about herself that she thinks he won't forgive her for. She certainly hasn't forgiven herself. And
I loved her complexity, that, like you said, she has awareness. She knows she's kind of dramatically changing herself, but she's like, well, weren't the tattoos kind of camouflage? I mean, wasn't that a form of hiding too? So kind of like, well, maybe this is the real me, but that she herself really is, clearly is hiding things from herself, has things that she doesn't even want to face. She was a fun narrator, because I wouldn't call her unreliable. I would call her complicated. She was just one of those, you've always, I'm sure you've met people that you're kind of fascinated by, who just won't really let you in. And they let you to a certain point, and then there's always a little standoffishness. And that's who she is. She'll let you in most of the way. And I mean, she's marrying this guy and she hasn't let him in. Yes.
But technically, neither has he.
The Battle of Secrets was kind of fun, and surprises, but there's a lot of heart to the story as well, which I loved. So what is your writing process like? I mean, is this, did you map this out, do tons of back, and then when you had it all there, go? Or are you just the messy approach like me and just show up and start writing?
Yeah, I kind of jump in with both feet and don't look to see how deep it is. Yeah, so sometimes I land well and sometimes I break my legs. And I broke my legs on this one. I jumped in. I knew what my idea was. I knew that opening of them flying, on the yacht coming up to this cliff. And so that was the image that I had in my head. But I really, it was a very messy book. There are 7 versions of it,
Oh my
not
gosh.
7 drafts, 7 versions, because it wouldn't work. I've never had a book fight me the way this one did. And part of it was that Claire was fighting me and wouldn't tell me who she was. But the book itself was fighting me. There were elements that I was trying to bring in that weren't working. I was really trying to make sure it was an homage to Rebecca and to Ripley and to all of the books that I had compared it to. So it had to have certain elements. And I finally had to let all that go and say, you know what, this is my story. I'm not retelling their story. I'm telling my own story. And when I did that, that made things a lot better. And so I was able to take, when I finally decided what I was doing, I got a big Mac and I opened all the documents and opened a Scrivener document and I started dragging and dropping things in and I rebuilt the book into what it is. It about killed me. It was a 14-month book that just, that's, you write really fast. And so you understand when I say it took 14 months to write this, that's a long time.
Your
That's
book
a
a year.
long time.
I mean, and you're often multiple books a
Right.
year. 14 months for
Right.
you is a very long time.
14 months for me was it was very long. It was very hard. I had 2 knee surgeries while I was drafting it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Which you understand that. I know you've been there. So I had surgery brain, so that wasn't helping either. Then we have this crazy pandemic start, and it was just one of those books that it needed to marinate. And once I just sat back and let it marinate and let it do what it needed to do and stop trying to force it, then it started to work. My process is not normally like this. Normally I can, I've got an idea of what the beats are and I can sit down and pound out a story and then fix it on revision. This was it was a different egg all the way along. Everything about it was a different thing for me. Maybe it was because I was creating the setting. It's a standalone. I mean, standalones are harder than series titles.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Before she disappeared, you're creating an entirely new world for everybody, and everything has to be pitch perfect or else it'll fall flat. So it is very it was a challenging book, but I think it's richer for it in the end.
Yeah, I think not just story-wise, but if you pull back the curtain, which is what us other authors do, wow, the technique going on there is really, really excellent and complicated. So I could see why it's nice to know as another author that this didn't come to you in the middle of the night and you just wrote it the next day.
No.
I would have to,
Never speak to me again.
So yes, which brings me to my next question. So when you're working on a project that's being this stubborn and it's not coming together, it's fighting you, what are your techniques to keep yourself going? I'm asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend. So writers, this is essentially writer's block, right? It is, I don't believe in it in that usually it's because the story is going in the wrong direction, right? Yeah. If I've been writing, 2,000 words a day and suddenly it's trickling off and I'm only writing 300 and I'm finding other things to do rather than sit down at my desk, it's probably because I've gone in the wrong direction with the story.
I always feel like I made the wrong turn.
Yeah, you just, you came to the road less traveled and you took the road that was too traveled. It's like, wait, what am I doing? I need to get back on that other
Well said.
Right. That's exactly it. It's like, no, somebody's already done this. But it was, there's also organic block though. There's a genuine writer's block that happens when there's a life event or a situation that hits you and it just saps your creativity. And I think that's happened to so many of us during the pandemic because we're multitasking, right? We're working, but we're also worried. And
Yes.
worry is a really, really difficult thing
I was
to
going to ask
work
how
through.
the pandemic affected your creative process, because it's interesting talking to the writers. How many of us, focus is very difficult to do.
Mhm.
It's almost like we have so many hours and time in our house. It's almost harder to focus on work. And for many people, there's a lot more people.
I know. I mean, I have the cats and Randy, and those are my responsibilities. I do not know how the writers who are homeschooling their kids are doing this, and mad props to all y'all. I mean,
Yeah.
you have every ounce of my support for what you've done because you're magnificent. That it's just impossibly hard for everybody. The it's not been bad for me. I feel like I was able to take a little bit of a breath, um, in a very ironic phrase there, but I've been going so hard so fast for so long that this was a moment for me to kind of step back and say, okay, I'm struggling with my work. Something's wrong. I can't read. I can't focus long enough to
I
read a
did too.
book.
I could not read for a while. That was
Oh,
terrible.
it was so awful. And that's, because if I'm not reading, I'm not writing. I don't know if you're the same
Yeah.
way. It kind of, they go hand in hand. And so, I watched a lot of TV and a lot of
I've never
great
watched so
shows.
much in my life.
Me either. And I mean, it's like, all right, what are we going to stream tonight? And we watched the whole thing. We started 5 and ended, 2 in the morning, and we've watched the entire season. That's just not something we normally did. So that though, watching how these dramatic stories are told on the screen really has been kind of a masterclass in writing for me. I've been able to see different ways of telling stories and how adaptation. I've been really paying attention to adaptations because I think it's so fascinating what Hollywood puts on the screen versus what a writer puts on the screen. It's different. It's very, very different. So it's given me a little bit of an excuse to look at things a different way, step back, take a breath. My activity, I'm on day 278 of my move goal. I've met my move goal every
That's
day.
right. You've been tracking this on Instagram. Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, that's kind of a life change to, we're such sedentary beasts that
Mm.
what we do means we got to park our butts in a chair and write. And this has given me a chance to really get a little more active. And we put a gym in because we couldn't go to the gym. So, I've got a better schedule now. So it's actually been a positive for me, even though I miss everybody so much. And yeah, my focus is shot. But I've just taken this moment in time to be present and recognize that this is a historical moment, and it's okay if the words don't come that day. It's okay. We're all going through this. It's not
I think
just
we
you
all
and
have to
me.
give ourselves a break. And I think you have to give
Yeah.
anyone who's home with small children even a bigger break.
An even bigger break. I
It's
mean,
just-
oh my gosh. And you're working from home for the first time. So many people are, you know, we work from home normally. So this hasn't been a huge adjustment for us. But for so many people, I mean, it's just we need to extend some grace to ourselves and to everybody else and just remember, this is a really stressful time and it's okay if you can't make magic. It's okay.
Well, I think one of the things for you and me, the magic really comes from books, from
Mhm.
writing, reading. And as such, of course, we're huge lovers of books, owning books, libraries. And I love following you on Instagram at Thriller Chick for the pictures you post of libraries all around the world. And then you were just showing us the people you don't even have any understanding what a magnificent library she's sitting in right now that we're seeing just this little sliver of. It is the coolest ever. So tell us about this. You definitely, some people, if they go through and they're foodies, you're a library.
I like bookshelves and I cannot lie. I do. I love bookshelves. I've always wanted a library. I We just moved, so we've moved into a house, and I have my own office. And I've got really really high ceilings, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to build the shelves up to the ceiling, and I'm going to put a ladder in. And that's so there's a ladder, and there's some of the shelves, and they go up really high, and it's just a really fun space. And that's something that I love to do when I travel. I love going to libraries. I love it. I mean, people go to museums, I go to libraries. I just think it's so cool. The last big trip that we took, we went to Oxford and I spent a bunch of time in the Bodleian and it was so neat. And I want to go to Yale and go to the Beinecke. That's just totally on my list of things that I want to do. I just, when I run into those moments of I can't do the work, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
All I have to do is turn my head to the left, and I've got your name right there. And I've got Catherine Coulter's name right there. And I've got every single writer I admire literally to my left telling me, you know what, get over yourself and get back to work. Because that's what y'all
Look at
did.
all the books
Because
and
that's
think,
why that book is there.
they didn't want to write their book either, and look, it got done.
Look, it got done. It always gets done. And if it didn't get done, I wouldn't have all of these books. So this is where I draw my energy, is from all of these titles and all of this creativity.
What a great idea. That's fabulous. All right, so we want to get to some questions from the participants, but I'm going to wrap up with a quick speed round, JT.
Okay.
So you're off the cuff answers and general interest categories. So favorite thing you've binge watched, we'll say during the pandemic.
The Queen's Gambit. And
Agreed.
Ted Lasso. That was also pretty great.
I got hooked on The Mandalorian too, so.
That was awesome.
Now WandaVision has me captivated, but I'm not at the end, so no one tell me anything. So, okay, so what are you reading right now?
I am reading Ellison Brennan's Tell No Lies.
Oh, I can't wait to read that one. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. She's one of my favorite authors as well.
Absolutely, me too. She's fabulous.
If you were to describe one of your characters as a flavor of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, what would it be and why?
Chunky Monkey, because it's the only one I can think of. But there's another one. We looked this up. I cheated. Coffee, coffee, buzz, buzz, buzz. I love that. And I think that is really fitting for Claire. Coffee, coffee, buzz, buzz, buzz.
Yeah, yes, she has that writer's mind, just whirring, 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 whirring.
Yep. Whir. It just can't stop.
And then our final question, which I was told to ask because God knows I couldn't do this as an author, but JT can describe her dark lies in 5 words.
What if Rebecca hadn't died?
Oh, that's good. I like that very much. Okay, speed round to JT. She won that one. That was excellent. Very well done. All right, so we want to get to some questions from the audience, and Carrie was going to help us out.
Hello.
Hi, Carrie.
All right, so let's get quite a few questions for you guys. Let's start off with this one from Erin. What is the most interesting thing you've learned doing research that you were not able to include in a book?
Oh my gosh. There is so much. I mean, research is an iceberg, right? You can only put a couple of things. Oh, what is it? That's really hard. Mostly it's the painting, probably in this book, because I don't know how to paint and I had to go and ask a friend to mess with the canvas so I could at least smell what oil paint smelled like and what it felt like to put on a canvas. And so that's probably what I did the most of that is not in this, because I watched Bob Ross videos. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I bought color wheels so I could learn the names of all of the colors. Yeah, I did a ton of painting research on this. And I think I have one reference to Payne's Gray and a couple of things like that. And that was about it. So yeah, that's probably it. That was a hard one.
That's a hard question. I'm glad you covered it. Well done.
All right, this one from Tiffany. Is there a location that you would like to take the setting from and make one of your books that you have not yet?
So many settings. So many settings. I need to write an Edinburgh book. That's definitely on the list. I love Edinburgh so much. I love Scotland so much. I have set a book in Scotland and had a dinner in Edinburgh, but I want I want the whole shebang there, and I want to go there and sit. I've got a hotel that I really like there, and I want to sit there in the courtyard and write that book. That would be awesome.
You and I love to travel, and that's certainly one of the things that inspires me as a writer. Since, for the longest time, I'm writing Detective Dee Dee Warren, who was always in Boston, but Boston is a fascinating city. But now that I started with a amateur sleuth, Frankie Elkin, she can travel the entire United States. So I'm writing a book now set in Wyoming, which I somewhat picked so I could feel like I was traveling in my mind, because I'm looking at the same thing for so long. But I feel like I'm getting away with something because I'm not in Boston. I'm in Wyoming. Don't tell.
And you wrote this as a standalone, and now you're going to do it as a series. So did you plan that?
No, nope. I totally flunked standalone. So no, Her Dark Lies, you have some opportunities, and there was there's some things at the end I won't give away. What do you think? Will we see more from them?
I'm not going to say no, because Claire, once she finally started talking to me, won't shut up.
There's some story. There's definitely stories to be told.
Yeah. I may have to at least do a short story or something, because she just won't stop now. She's just knocking on the door.
Well, it's very exciting for your fans, I bet.
No promises, but yeah, we're gonna all keep doing what we're doing.
You never know.
You never know.
Jennifer asks, you mentioned that it was difficult to figure out who Claire was. What writer's tricks do you have to learn about who your characters are?
I want to know. Tell me.
I interview them. I actually interview them. I'll sit down with them and say, hey, what do you look like? What color's your hair? What color's your hair really? Do you wear glasses? Do you wear contacts? Are you, what sexual orientation are you? What is it about you that's special? What would your friends say is your greatest strength? What is your biggest weakness? What is your biggest shame? What is what is the thing that you would kill to hide? That's the most important for me. I want to know what it is that they would literally kill somebody to keep a secret. Once I know that, then I know who the character is.
Now, do you do that at the beginning, or is that something you do when you start getting stuck, or has that become just an iterative process? Because the characters seem to reveal themselves in stages in this writing business, I think.
Yeah, it's not something that I can do it, and I do it every once in a while at the very, very beginning. But usually it's, you're like me, right? You like to just sit down and see what happens. And then you can go back and say, okay, you apparently are going to be my main character, so let's get to know you. And that's, they do reveal themselves in stages sometimes.
I always feel like I have to start writing before I think about it. Like if I really acknowledge I'm not going to do a book or work on a book today, I would run away in terror. So it's like you have to, before you're fully conscious in the morning, before you actually know anything about the book, or just, keep moving.
Do you find that you write, this happens to me every single time. I sit down and I'll bang out like 15,000 words and be like, oh my gosh, this might be actually a story. And the second I start thinking this might actually be a story, it shuts down. And I have to start thinking about it, and what am I going to do, and how am I going to, that's when I have to actually start plotting things out. Does that happen to you, or are you just organic from start to finish?
100 pages.
Okay.
I only know whatever I learned from police procedure in terms of like what logical questions a detective would ask, that kind of thing. So the first 100 pages, I'm learning everything. I'm learning kind of the plot as I go. I'm learning the characters as I go, the setting as I go. I always think of it as like pouring a foundation of a house, except because you and I established we don't like to plan ahead, I don't actually even know what the house is. So it is very messy, and then I end up having too much stuff because you can tell I don't know what I'm doing, and then I have like not enough. And so the first 100 pages is what I kind of stew over. And then it's like, once that foundation's solid, the rest of the book, now you're just putting up walls, and it's kind of like boom, boom, boom.
Sure, that makes sense. That's so cool. But every book's got all that concrete.
That's a really interesting way to think about that. Let's see. Another one from Tiffany. Even though you've been doing more standalone novels, do you ever feel like the stories that you have written are sometimes connected in a way?
Ooh, what do you think, JT?
Wow. So that would mean that I was like brilliant and was building a Cosmere, which would be so amazing if I had thought about that before I started doing this. Um, I would think that they all sort of are because I mean, you could have all of these parallel stories. A lot of them are happening in Nashville. I'm very careful not to cross pollinate the standalones because just it's easier technically when you're selling rights not to have the same character in two books that aren't actually a series, because then if they buy one then they actually technically get to buy the other one. So my people like me to keep them separate, but I always love having those Easter eggs that kind of can be pulled through. And I would think they all thematically are very linked because it's all about the secrets that we keep and the lies that we tell ourselves and other people. So yeah, technically, yeah, they could.
So why do you think we're drawn to those stories? Psychological suspense. And I agree with you with the definition. It's like we're fascinated with other people's secrets. So why are you
Mhm.
fascinated? What got you into secrets and lies, JT?
Mm, that is, I think I'm always looking to see if somebody's telling me the truth or not. I'm not a really trusting person. I'm one of those people that I'll let you about to hear, and that's as far as you get to go, right? I have a very, very small cadre of super close friends. And it's just a defense mechanism on my part. So I think I'm writing people like myself who are trying, it's not that I'm trying to hide things. I have nothing really to hide. It's just I'm really, really a private person, and I'm fascinated by private people who don't want to tell everybody. I'm an introvert. I'm an
I
introvert.
I think most writers are. I agree with you. For me, it's the psychology of it all. Why do we do what we do? I mean, why do
Right.
good people do bad things? Bad people do good things? And I think for the one thing for me, every book has been a question at the end of the day. Like, before she disappeared, why would someone do this with their life? And often it's kind of like what you're saying. When you start to realize what that is, then all this kind of jumbled bits kind of start to snap into
Yeah.
place and you can start to see it.
And we're not us, but people are pretty horrible to other people. And that's kind of fascinating to me too. I mean, just even watching what's happened recently with social media, how strangers will pop on and say things to you that they would never in 1,000 years say to your face if you were in the same room together. How that's unfiltered so many people. That's really interesting to me. It's like, is that what people were really thinking all that time? Ooh. So apparently, it was. Apparently that's the inner monologue of a lot of people, that they're smiling, but that's not what they're really doing.
The inner
That's
monologue, I like that. That's kind of creepy and scary. And yeah, except you're
yeah.
right. The inner monologue is creeping. It's coming out.
Right. It's no longer, I mean, it used to be we were told what we were going to think and watch because we had such little access. And the more access we have, the more the gloves come off. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost like we need that kind of version of an inside voice for online postings.
Right. It's like, are you using your inside voice? Are you really? Before you hit send, are you using your I love that. Are you using your inside voice? That's great. You're a mom. You've got that.
Um, let's see. Mary says, I'm always looking for new authors. Who are some of your favorites?
Oh, well, you're looking at her. This is a perfect moment to give you a quick shout out because I've been a fan of Lisa for years. And then we met and bonded over French fries, which was incredible. So that was, there was that. But when I get lost, when I do get writer's block, one of the things that I do is go back and read books by people who I know how to tell stories. And you are one of them. And when I was really in the weeds on this book,
Oh, how funny. Oh,
I read this and there were two things I was doing wrong in the story. One, Claire was kind of caught in her room a lot. And two, I just couldn't get the people mixing together. You've got a couple of scenes in here that are just, I mean, there are so many people on the stage. And I was like, Oh, that's how you do it. So
Oh, good God, how'd I do it? Now
went back. I would have never finished this book if I hadn't read you, if I hadn't trusted that you would show me the path. So Lisa is one of my all-time favorites. Ellison Brennan is a big favorite. We were
Yes.
talking about Tess Gerritsen earlier. Huge influence on me.
Lisa Gardner, who you get to see later this week. We both love Confessions of the 745, one of my hands
Oh
down favorite books of last
my
year, 2020.
gosh. And The Stranger Inside that she wrote, the book that she wrote before that, if y'all haven't read that, it's insane. It's insane. There's several other authors who they're my go-tos: Laura Benedict, Ariel Lawhon, Patty Callahan Henry's new book, Surviving Savannah, is out today. So that's really fun. We're sisters on our release day.
I have Lisa Scottolini's Eternal, which I'm so
Yes.
excited for.
Oh my gosh, I can't, because it's set in Italy. I mean, that's, again, with all of these Italian books, right?
Yeah,
It's just good timing. She's
now we're traveling now.
amazing. Oh, I mean, between Lisa and I, we could probably rattle off like 500 fabulous authors that we love. There are so many. Lisa Jewell, I'm getting ready. So
Yes.
here's what I'm getting ready to read when I finish Ellison. I've got the new Kara Rauda. I've got Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell, and I've got Adele Park's Just My Luck. So that's what I've got coming up to read, and I'm so excited.
That's a great TBR pile.
Right? It's sitting here on the library ladder, just waiting for me to jump into it.
I have a Peter Swanson book. It comes out in 2 weeks. I have Lisa Scottolini's Eternal, and I have 3 or 4 that just came, but they're debut authors. So we'll all learn their names together. But that's one of the best parts of our job, is to get to have sneak peeks and read.
It is.
Books are like candy for us, and I still have a sweet tooth.
And do you feel like things are settling down? You feel like you can focus a little better and read better? I mean, I read through all of this, but I didn't love the reading that I was doing through all of this, because, and there's some books I'm like, I got to come back to this. I know I'll love it another time.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That's what I'm going to say, finding the right thing. I love historical romance. I've always loved reading it. I followed Julia Quinn from the very beginning, and as Bridgerton came out, and, we started talking more. Some newer authors that I hadn't read came to my attention. Lisa Kleypas. So it's like I read the first one of her 5-book series. I think I read 17 Lisa Kleypas novels in the month of December, and they're perfect.
Wow.
Like, if you love Julia Quinn's Bridgerton, they're perfect. It's family, it's witty dialogue, but again, it's like you're just so transported to another time, and it's like, there I could live. Like, that worked really well for me.
That's fine. I do YA fantasy. That's my escape. I love those stories of young women who find out that they have a power that they weren't aware of, and they're forced into a leadership role. And that's, I like that in all of my books. I mean, that's just something that I look for. That's a theme that I look for. But yeah, I can escape into that. But now I did watch Bridgerton and loved it. That was amazing. And I need to go back and read those books. I've read Lisa before. She's awesome.
I loved them. I mean, that was my December. It was great.
I love that you have a ladder for your TBR, and I always just have piles of books everywhere.
It was not what I meant to do with it, but I had like 3 books come in one day, and I was in a hurry, and I set it on there, and then I set another one on there, and the next thing I know, I'm like, well, that's going to be my TBR. I can just stack them right there. It works perfectly, except for when I need the ladder to get to something.
Aside from that.
Soling myself with your beautifully organized bookshelves, because you just moved in. Because I moved 2 years ago, and it really started out very pretty, and now I'm to the piles on the floor of all the books. But it looked, like I could control my appetite. Now there's just all.
I have been very good about, when I finish something, I put it in a box and I send it to my assistant, and she does mystery box giveaways on the Literati, my Facebook group, the Literati. So that is how I'm taming things right now, because I don't have a lot more room. I've got room for 1 or 2 more yellow books, and because I organize by color.
Note to self: write a yellow book.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're right. The spine. I don't think of it. I think of it as a green book, but okay, good job.
I
They saw your decorating motif.
when I had to pull this afternoon, I told Randy, I'm like, uh-oh, I know it's green. I know it's green because, but it's
Yeah.
not, it's yellow. It tricked me, but I found it. I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. I was yelling, look, there it is. I found it.
All the time and energy we put in our books, and we really were broken down to it's yellow. It's
Right? I know it's green. I know it's yellow. It's, the purple ones. There's a lot of cool purple ones out there too.
Ooh,
Not many
YA
of them. It's
books.
only like a shelf and a half.
And the YA books, I think, are just works of art. I love those.
Oh, they are. They're just absolutely gorgeous. I love, the art has changed so much recently. I love the new direction that everything is going in. I love this cover.
Yes.
I mean, it just boom, just boom, mic drop. They sent it to me and they're like, so this is the concept. I'm like, if you change anything, I'm going to be very upset. They're like, really? I'm like, perfect. Perfect.
It's so great in the cover process. Like, I always feel like, you can talk about, for most of us, it's like the art department brings us, their beliefs. And I mean, we get to have some input, but, we're really more about the content of the book. So to me, it goes one of two ways. You get that, the very first thing they show you, it's like falling in love. That's it. I know it.
Yep.
Or you don't, and next thing you know, you've looked at 40 of these and you have color fatigue, and it's like, well, maybe number 8 was, and then the process gets not so much fun for everyone.
No, it is. It's been my experience too. It's either just boom or no, it's not it. I mean, we argued on Tear Me Apart. We argued over the size of that window, like for 3 weeks. It just, there's sometimes I think the writer knows when the book isn't the package that you want people to see, and marketing knows the package is going to work for people. And it's hard sometimes to let your own ego step out of the way and defer to the people who really are the experts in this. They really do know best. Most of the time though, I've gotten really lucky with my covers. I love my covers.
I've loved the Dutton art department. I mean, I think each book, and I love the boldness of these colors, particularly now we're looking at books thumbnail size. And I thought of the book too, it's even smaller, it's still you want to go to it. You want to go step into it.
Well, look at that. Look at the cool treatment on this too. When I put it up here earlier, you can see it kind of blurs with the different treatment. It's so neat. I mean, there's just so many cool things. We obviously love our art departments.
We're a little bit into books, just a touch.
Just a touch. We actually are examining these things, going, "Oh my God,
Next
look at your
start talking to them about how they smell and how much we love the smell of them." And
I do love the smell of books. That makes me very happy. My brother gave me book smelling perfume, a book scented perfume. And it does, it smells like a library. It's the coolest thing. Yeah, it's really neat. That was a cool present.
I've seen that before, but I was always like, does it actually smell like books?
It does. It really does. It smells like a bookstore or a library. It's got that kind of musty odor to it. It smells good. It doesn't smell musty, but it just has that, it smells like paper. It's really neat. Really cool.
I think we have time for one more question. This one's from Tiffany. Would you like to see any of your books or series turned into a movie or a TV series?
Lisa and I are nodding. Of course. Yes. So let me answer it in a different way. Would I rather it be a movie or a TV series? Because they're very, very different things, and especially how the stories are told. The movie, that's going to stick a little bit closer to the book. The TV show, you can bring in the other characters and other things. Now, Lisa's had shows made and movies made, so maybe you can talk a little bit more about that process.
Well, it's interesting. I like what they're calling the limited series model, which is you're saying like the Bridgerton, which is now, 8 episodes. They've been doing more books that way. And I think that 8 episode sweet spot, you get the whole story of a single book. When they're made into a movie, you're going from 100,000 words to basically a 30,000 word script. So to say that you're going to lose most of a book, and that's why not all books adapt well. I mean, you're pretty much, you can take the spine, that's it. If you do a series like say Bones or Rizzoli and Isles, you're right. It will just completely take on a life of its own, though it might be also just a cool kind of different parallel universe of what you created. So, but the stuff that's going on now and the interest producers have, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more books. You know, Kristen Handa's Firefly, Karen Slaughter has a book coming, Harlan does, Michael Connelly. I think there's a lot of good things ahead.
I agree. I love seeing my friends get optioned. It's so cool. It's like, I know Mary Kavika's got one coming out from Netflix. That's going to be really cool. Yeah. The Echo Wife just got optioned this week. I don't know if you've seen that, but that book looks astounding. I really want to read
right
it.
now we have CJ Box's Big Sky, which is doing
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, now see, we need that. I miss Yellowstone. I'm ready for it to come back. Not that we have opinions about that.
Ask us one question. We can just keep going here.
All right. I think that's about it. I would like to thank everyone again so much for coming and supporting Lisa Gardner and JT Ellison, and congratulations on your new releases. It's amazing.
Thank you.
You guys can go to the links in the comment to order these 2 books, or you can go to writersblockbookstore.com and get your hands on a copy of Her Dark Lies and Before She Disappeared. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations, JT.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And Lisa, you are wonderful. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Bye.